What's going on, everybody? Thank you all for being here tonight. It's Tuesday night at 8 p.m. on the East Coast. It's time for Proper Royals Live. I got Robby Jensen on the show tonight from, I think it's the upstate of South Carolina, but certainly South Carolina. I think maybe Spartanburg or Greer. Matter of fact, I'm sure it's the upstate area now that I think about some details. But anyway, we're going to talk to Robby about his breeding, I was going to say operation, but like breeding model, kind of the idea of maybe keeping a little bit smaller, but going really premium. He's got some great stuff. Also a really good dude. Like I got to meet him, not in person, but how we crossed paths is kind of a cool story. So we're going to dive into that. He's also one of the few people I know that has even attempted and gone after a bilingual YouTube channel in our industry. Obviously there's many of those out there in other industries, but in the reptile ball python world. And, plus, I'm just looking forward to hanging out. I've come to really just kind of look forward to Tuesday nights. So thanks to everybody in the audience tonight. Like somebody, Stephen and Courtney, they were on, I forget whose show they were on. Doesn't matter. Leviathan Snakes. They just gave me a really kind shout out about the way they put it was the community that I've built, but really it's the community I've gotten to be a part of. And I mean that. That's not just like fluffing up the audience or whatever. Like that is really kind of cool. Like I've come to realize I look forward to this. And yeah, it's a job. Yeah, it's work, but it doesn't pay that well, so I'd rather hang out. You know what I mean? Jessica and I could do a show on the time versus dollar benefit, but the fulfillment is fantastic. There's a lot of things that don't fit in the spreadsheet. So thank y'all for being here. For 2 weeks in a row now, I'm going with the microphone. I'm going to try it. I put a post on Instagram. I'm looking on my phone, which I never do while I'm live because that's rude because I should be looking here. But I have to pull up. I put a poll on one of my reels, joking with Adam Wickens when he was on 2 weeks ago or last week. Yeah, he was on last week. That was last week. And about whether I should have the microphone here or not. I don't know. It seems like people take it more serious. And over 1,300 of you all watched the reel. I don't know how many of you all voted. It doesn't show me. But in a close race, 53% said I should have the microphone. So if you want to change the results, you go check out the reel. You could vote different. But, you know, the voters have spoken. We'll go with the microphone. If you watch the show each week, you know, this is the most ridiculous thing to have because it's not necessary. Anyway, I say this every week. Well, I'll get over it. We'll go. HB Reptiles, thanks for being here. I don't know if I've seen you at the show before. And Blue Chip Constrictors, maybe new. Ray Nevada, maybe new as well. Thank you so much for joining. And the rest of y'all, I think it only says there's like 15 of you all. But man, what a crowd we got tonight. We got Brandon, Jessica's in here, Phil, Chris from BNS Reptilia, all kinds of good people. I know I'm missing some people, but you guys know I'm not great at shout outs. Two friends from Patreon are here too. Evan, Unlikely Morphs, and Casey Goff is here as well. Guys, thanks so much for the support. Chakra Scales, go check out Taylor on that. And his chickens, man, this guy, if you go to Chakra Scales, then there's a Chakra Chickens page, I think, too. And I'm probably saying the names wrong. You can put the handle in the comments there. I don't know why I clicked on you saying you're a chronic hater, Jessica. That's not fair. That's not what I meant to click. Yeah, thank you so much. My cup is full, and it runs over to keep the analogy going. All right, enough with all the shout outs. I got announcements on the show to get to, but it doesn't mean that I don't appreciate you being here. I do know there's a lot of places that you could be tonight. So thank you so much. I've been busy. I played a gig Friday night. I played a gig Saturday night after working kind of my consulting job during the week. Sunday morning, I got up. I drove to Miami, which is no small feat from Jacksonville to Miami. Went to go check out a real estate property investment that looks like I'm going to go after. And the crazy tie-in in all of this is that Kike at Bosa Balls set me up with the realtor down there in South Florida, and it's all going really, really well. So huge shout out and thanks to Kike. He does a lot for our community. And then and then like outside of it. So 6 ovulations so far this year on the ball pythons. That's pretty cool. I'm excited for that. I got to do a video of like what I got coming so that maybe I could build some hype. And if you all are interested, of course, I would love to get it to the show audience first, if anybody's interested before going to a show. But I got a blackhead genetic stripe. I'll just name what my best possibilities are. So super blackhead genetic stripe from one clutch. I'll have a whole clutch of, they'll all be hypo, they'll all be hepides, they'll all be pastel, and half should be banana statistically, but otherwise they'll all be hypo, hepide, pastels. Banana pides, super inchy clowns, banana pides again. And I got one of my Dreamsicle Project girls ovulated. I have 2 this year. One of them ovulated. So we'll see what's up with her. Hopefully I hit some of those. I have no idea what my note means here. Oh, behind the scenes. Yeah, there's still some stuff going on behind the scenes. I alluded to something last week. I gotten a really interesting phone call, but nothing's come of it yet. Nothing has not come of it, if that makes sense, but nothing's come of it either. So maybe, who knows? We'll see. Kai from Lucas Land and Royals will be back on the show next week. Longtime supporter, one of the very first guests. And one of the first people that I was like, wow, he really like, because at the time, I think he had like 4,500 subscribers on YouTube, which is no small feat. I think he's closer to 6 now. But for him to even give me the time of day, much less come on the show, was real cool. So Kyle will be back. I'm going to go solo the week after. And then Gray Family Snakes, they're going to be on. They're over in Africa raising, I think that they're certainly volunteering, but they've been raising money. And Jessica talks a lot about this on her podcast, The Whole Back Rack. Raising money for a really, I was going to say relatively inexpensive, forget relatively, an absolutely inexpensive surgery that can literally save people's eyesight in countries where eye care is poor. And I don't know enough about it, but we're going to learn more about that. But this is also the region that ball pythons are exported from when they're imported in the United States. So it's a really neat tie into the community, a cool mission that they're on as a family. And they are, I think they're endeavoring to be breeders, or maybe they've bred for a couple seasons like myself. I'm not so far along myself. So anyhow, Great Family Snakes, they'll be on in 3 weeks. Yeah, 3 weeks from tonight, the 30th of May. I'm kind of slow play in June. Like I say, I got this thing behind the scenes going. I'm kind of waiting to see what comes of that. But I'll have more guests for June. Interesting poll. I did a poll on do you use ultrasound? And I suppose I should have put, would you want to? Because ultrasounds are not cheap, even if they're relatively only $1,000. But 54% of you said no, or 56% maybe said no, and only 44% said yes. So I thought that was interesting as well. I'm on this little kick on Reels thing, trying to get some data, So Robby Jensen, RJEN Reptiles. I'm going to introduce Robby first and bring him on, and I'll tell the story of what our first interaction was, because it's kind of cool and it does bring me some joy. So please welcome for the very, very first time to the Proper Royals stage, Robby Jensen from upstate South Carolina. Robby, how you doing, man?
Good, man. It's good to be on. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you, man. We've been we've had an interesting interaction up to this point, and somewhere in the midst of that, I was like, man, I got to get this guy on the show. And then I feel so bad because there's a ton of podcasts, but whose show were you on not all that recently where I can't, was it with Keys, or was it with like the Usual Suspects, or what's the show you've been on recently?
Yeah, the only show that I've been on is with Keys Constrictors. And then I did a live once, Instagram live with Jaffe and Bomb Projects.
Gotcha. Okay,
so those are pretty much all I've done. So
yeah, so it must have been with Keys. So was that on the Wednesday night episode that he does, where it's one guest, or is it on like Friday night where there's like a house party?
Yeah, no, it was the Wednesday night. Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So I was even happier when I saw you on there. I was like, oh, man, I'm gonna get along with Robby. We're gonna have a good time hanging out. And like, like you've kept in touch too, like because I had mentioned that I got ties to that region. I was like, yeah, I hope to get up there in the spring, and like out of the blue, we hadn't talked in a month or 6 weeks. We're like, hey, you still coming up? I was like, oh,
Yeah.
well, no, but that's cool that you checked in on me.
Yeah. No, it would have been great to have you up. And I know you're still thinking about it if you can get up here, but we've got some really good, it's a good little community here. We're not super tight. I'd love for it to grow a little bit, but I mean, anytime we have a little show me show or something like that, a lot of the breeders on here, so it's good.
But you got a lot of people in your area. I mean, a lot of people doing cool stuff. I mean, Stephen and Courtney aren't too far from you. They're not really in the upstate, but Aiken's what, an hour and a half, hour from you, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know. I've never been there.
I gotcha. I haven't either. I've seen the signs, like I know where to turn off, but yeah, I don't know either. But Flawless Exotic Creations there in your neck of the woods, and there's a few others off the top of my head that I can't quite recall that are maybe not right there. I mean, Balls and Strikes aren't too far away and all that. But
we have Claudio at KC Reptile Lab. He's in the area as well. And then we have a guy named Chris Coons. He's just kind of starting out. He's in there. He's a good friend of mine. And then I don't know if you know, he's not a ball python guy, but his name is Terry Burwell. He's been into snakes forever. He has a lot of cool stuff like diamond pythons and the dog snakes, all kinds of stuff. So it's pretty cool.
No, I'm not familiar, but it is that area and that circuit where I first got like reintroduced to ball pythons. And actually my wife and son had gone to I think it was a Repticon, but whatever the show was in Asheville. And so Asheville to Spartanburg's what, 45 minutes, hour?
Yeah,
maybe?
it's not that bad. Yeah, an hour maybe. Yeah.
So they came, my wife came back and she was like, it was really crazy. There's all these snakes. And I was like, well, do you know what kind they were? She's like, I don't know. They're all kind of different things. I was like, all right, that's kind of neat. And then at that Christmas, we got our son a bearded dragon. And then of course, COVID hit and I got cooped up, and I'd had ball pythons in college. And I was like, man, if he gets a bearded dragon, maybe I need a ball python again.
Yeah, there you go.
and I was like, Kelly said, my wife is Kelly. I was like, she said that there was all these snakes at this reptile show. Maybe, I don't know. I was like, let me just Google where another like snake show will be. And all these ball pythons came up, and I was like, holy smokes. Yeah. It was like 20 plus years since I'd had them in college. And I was like, that's a whole different ball game, So, anyhow, it was in that area. So I'm sure a lot of those people that you're talking about, were probably selling at that circuit and that show. I've been to one. I went to a Repticon in Spartanburg, as a matter of fact. Is it like the Armory, or is it? I don't know what it's something. It's an odd venue there.
I've never seen one in Spartanburg. In Greenville, we have it at like the Shriners Club. There's a Repticon there. And then the Show Me Snakes show are normally in. There's like I think it's a Marriott hotel. But they just did a one-day one. I was out of town, so I couldn't make it. But I don't know where that was. I don't think it was at the hotel. So they're kind of exploring some different venues.
Yeah, and this is getting really kind of nerdy and niche for any audience members, so we'll probably move on in a second. But it's like an old mall. It's not an Armory. It's like an old mall that they turned into event centers right when you cross the border from North Carolina. Maybe 10 minutes south. I can't remember, but anyway. But yeah, so that area is real special to me and my family. But so when I wish we had like rehearsed this. We could have like batted the story back and forth. So how I met Robby is I started to work with this social media consultant / coach. I was like, I'm not really getting anywhere. And I am a believer in seeking out strong people. I don't know how to play drums, so I got to go hire a drummer. I guess I could learn, but I don't have 10 years to get that down. Right. So I started working with this social media consultant, and he gives me the strategy on who I should be following that's going to activate the algorithm. And he gives me a few different things to search for and to seek out. And I'm doing this, and it's like soul-sucking work. It feels wrong. It feels like I should be building organically, and like rainbows and butterflies should attract all of us together. And here I am, like just poking in a formula. And up pops RJEN Reptiles. I click follow and check out. I think I was supposed to comment on a couple of the people's pages that I followed. And out of the blue, like that afternoon or the next day, I get a message from Robby, and he goes, "What number? What was the number?"
It was 3,000.
3,000.
Yeah.
Out of the blue, Robby goes, "Congratulations, you're my 3,000th follower. You won the contest." And I was like, what? I thought it was like a joke. Remember they used to have these prank, and they still have these prank shows, but where like somebody goes through a supermarket and they're like, "You're the millionth customer, you get nothing." And I was like, this doesn't seem right. And you're like, "No, I'm going to send you a clown 66% het desert ghost. Just send me your." I was like, "Really?" You're like, "Yeah, really happy to have you." So I have 3,000 followers. I was like, the social media coach is onto something, man.
Yeah,
it's magical.
Well, it's funny because like I wasn't doing I wasn't doing a contest or anything. It was probably the opposite of what your social media coach would have said to do. But I was just man, I was amazed that I got up to 3,000, and it's I mean it's been, I guess I've been on for like, I started just for the snakes.
Yeah.
And so I mean I got to 3,000, like, man, I should do something, and then it just, I mean, you were the 3,000th, and I recognized your name from the podcast. I was like, oh, that's cool, and so hit you up, and it was kind of cool. But
well, I even looked. I was like, maybe he's not. Maybe he's just like, he's close enough. I'll get a mention on the podcast. No, it was a spot on 3,000. Like, it was
exactly 3,000. That's what I mean. That's pretty amazing. So
I was like, all right, man, time to start following people. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
So, hey, we're doing this all backwards, but introduce yourself for people that don't know you. Tell us a little bit about what you got going on and what you're doing, and RJEN Reptiles.
Yeah. So, like many folks, I got started during COVID. Actually, it was very, very beginning of COVID. I got back into the ball pythons like you. I was into it probably 98 to 2002. I was 16 years old. I was really into reptiles, and I found this website called kingsnake.com. And so I was I was on it all the time, mainly in the forums, just learning. I was actually more of a boa guy at that time. So I had boas in my, and at the time it was, the two, like, dream snakes was an albino, and they were probably about $5,000, and the pied, I remember seeing, I mean, like most people, you see a pied and you're like, this is amazing.
Yeah. You're like, I still, when I hatch them, I'm like, that's the one I used to dream about. Like I'm a kid in college again, you know?
It was ridiculous. And so, and at that time they were about 25, I think they're about, $25,000 or so. Like, I remember I went to the Arlington show probably 2000, 2001. It wasn't the Arlington show at the time, but it was, I don't know who hosted it at that time, but it was at the Arlington Convention Center. I remember walking up to Bob Clark's table, and he had like 20 pies, all at $25,000 a piece on there. I was like, good night. Yeah, it was really cool. But I was actually, I mean, I was more big snakes, right? You're in high school, you're in big snakes, so Burmese and boas and all that. Now, my parents are not fans of it, so I was always trying to sneak them in, or I placed them at my friend's house. And
how do you sneak a burr, man? Like, that's not the snake.
Well, I snuck it in as a baby, and then, fed it, way overfed it. And by the time, within like 6 months, it was 6 feet long, and I had to move it to a friend's house or something like that. But, it was just I was really into it. And then it actually put me on, I wanted to go study herpetology in college. And so I ended up going to the University of Texas at Tyler to do that.
Were you in Texas at that time?
Yeah, I grew up in Dallas for most of my life. I'm actually, my dad's from India. I was born in India, but grew up in Dallas, and so moved out to Tyler, and I lasted maybe like 3 weeks in college. I was like, this is not for me. But I started, I had like false, by that time, I was living with a friend. So I got false water cobra. I had a couple ball pythons. I had, at that time, I think I just down to one female boa or something like that. And then at that time, I just had some things happen in my life, and I had an opportunity to move down to Costa Rica. And it was it was like a 3-month thing, but then I ended up just, you know, started doing life there and went to school there, got married there, had my kids there. And so,
oh, really?
So I ended up staying for about 10 years, but in Costa Rica, it's very, very, I mean, I don't know if you've been there. It's an amazing place. Anybody who loves reptiles or birds or fish or anything, they probably need to get to Costa Rica sometime. And it's an amazing place to see all kinds of wildlife. And so, but you're not allowed to keep a whole lot. So you can't have snakes there. You have cats, dogs, that kind of thing, but they're very, very eco-conscious. Okay. So I lived down there. Obviously couldn't keep anything, but I mean, I would catch, you know, we'd go out and they've got lots of different microclimates there. So you could go and find anything from fertilances up in the higher climates. You could find I think they're called neotropical rattlesnakes. They're close to the beach. You'd find, I think they're some kind of whip snake or cribo, some massive thing. Then you have boas. You have the Central American boas.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty amazing time.
Were you on the Pacific side or the Atlantic side?
So the first 5 years I lived in the Central Valley where San Jose is. That's where I was going to school, and that's where my wife is from. But she also grew up on the Pacific side. It's called the Nicoya Peninsula, and it's one of the most beautiful places in the world, I think. And so when we got married, we moved out there. And so we were very close to the beach, did a lot of surfing, sold real estate, that kind of thing. And so, but you know, you get to see all kinds of animals, and it was pretty cool. So when we moved back to the States, though, at that time I was kind of trying to get a business going, breeding and training security dogs. Mm-hmm. And so, just breeding animals has always kind of been a part of my deal. And so was doing that in Costa Rica. When I moved up to the States, you know, I tried to get it going, but there's a lot more liability, security issues when you're trying to deal with that kind of stuff here. And so I had to get rid of them. And when we moved to the Greenville area, I would every once in a while check kingsnake.com. It would still look the exact same, right? It still looks the exact same.
Yeah, right.
But I would keep up, and then there'd be like a local Repticon show, and I'd take the kids and we'd go, and I'd be like, man, because last time I remember when whoever it was that hatched out the first, it might have been Vin Russo, the first blue-eyed Lucy. I remember when they posted that picture on the forum, in Pig Snake, and I saw a kid walking around with the blue-eyed Lucy in the show. I was like,
you get one, everybody gets one.
Yeah, it's like, this is nuts, because I think at the time people were talking in the 60, 65 grand range for a white snake with blue eyes, right?
Yeah.
And so I knew something was going on, but I wasn't keeping up with it. And then, so I was into it. I got into more like hunting dogs and that kind of stuff. I was doing that here. And then COVID came around. I couldn't really go hunting or anything, and I was like, I'm gonna get a blood python. My wife is like, she's from Costa Rica, and you know, Latinos, there's a bit, I mean, a lot of different countries have, you know, they have taboos against snakes and stuff, and so I've been working on her for a long time to try to get, but my kids actually got her to say yes. And cool. So in the process of looking for a blood python, I found Morph Market, and it was funny because I was like, I'm going to look for albino, right? Albino ball python. And I found a male albino het pied for like $350. I was like, sold. I was like,
I would have mortgaged my house for that 20 years
exactly.
ago. Yeah.
So I basically convinced, my kids, because I was telling my wife, hey, we can do this together as a family. And so I ended up getting that male albino het pied, and then a double het albino pied female, and a female pied poshead albino. They were all adults. Got them in, and I started, but at that time I started seeing what was going on with everything. So pretty soon I saw, hey, the market is not what you used to know. And for my first season, that was actually the main project that I focused on, was like albino pied or candino pied, that kind of thing. I liked candy at the time. But so my dream snake actually, when I was younger, was pastel. Okay. It was really black, because I just see the babies, a pastel. But then when I got back into it, I saw Desert Ghost. I was like, oh, it's a pastel that holds its colors.
Yeah.
And so I just lucked out and started buying a whole bunch of Desert Ghost stuff as I got more into it. And that was at the very beginning of it, COVID. And then like literally 3 or 4 months later was when everything started talking Desert Ghost, Desert Ghost, Desert Ghost. And I had basically already bought the foundation for all my Desert Ghost stuff.
Yeah.
And so
I do remember that, because like that was right the April of COVID, April of 2021 is when I got my banana pastel. I was like, I got it. Look at this. It was like, you know, it's like I'd opened the suitcase from Pulp Fiction and that's what was in there, you know? But yeah, I remember like, yeah, Desert Ghost was the, like, if you weren't doing that, you weren't serious. And I even remember being like, man, all these people that can do Desert Ghost, I can't do that yet. You know, like it was like this. I never, and to this day, I don't own any. But a thought struck me. So you quit school after 3 weeks and moved to Costa Rica, and like I knew a lot of dudes from the University of Florida here, and that was in Gainesville, but that I was going to school with, that's like exactly what they did, and none of them ever did anything like get married, start a family, and sell real estate. Like they all crashed and burned. They came back like 3 months later and they're like, oh, bruh, it was a blast. I'm like, what are you going to do now? And they're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like none of that. Like I'm seriously, I bet there's 7 or 8 or 10 dudes that I know that were like, I can't do college. Well, we're going to go surf. We're going to go surf Costa, bro. You know, I'm like, okay, man.
It was, well, what happened, the good thing is like I got into school there, and school is quite a bit less expensive than here, and so I was able to swing, you know, scholarships and savings and all that kind of stuff to be able to do that. And then, you know, you just mature over time. I mean, living in the Central Valley, I wasn't on the coast, so I wasn't having, I mean, I'd have to travel to go surfing, which I had to learn to surf there. But so, and I'm kind of like I can be disciplined in what I do. So like I see something, I go after it. So I was in school, I knew that was my focus, and that just probably helped me because there's so many people that just backpack through there and travel through there. I think it's a great experience.
Yeah, but all these dudes were partying and surfing, and I think a number of them even were just like, all you need's a hammock on the beach, man. I'm like, that's camping, dude. That's not living.
Yeah. And anyway, you can do that for a week. It's not bad for a week, but you can't make a living out of that.
Right,
so
yeah, you can't like quit school and go there, you know, like for that, you know. So it was just funny because that was like, I don't know why it was like a thing. I remember people being like, school's not for me. I'm going to surf Costa. And I'm like,
there you go.
A lot of y'all saying this. This isn't going well for any of you, but hey, so you broke the mold. Yeah, and I'm sure we'll circle back around to it, but that must have been the tie-in on some of the bilingual channel stuff. And I like to say, we'll circle back to that. So, man, you're doing some pretty high-powered stuff for being, you know, what are they going to call us? The COVID generation? We're like Gen COVID or whatever in the industry, you know? But like you're doing some pretty high-powered stuff, man. What was the trajectory, or did you set out and buy some double recessive stuff, or how did you get so far along into the double recessive so quickly? Because the math doesn't work unless you buy something, right? So what were some of those things that you bought?
Yeah. So, well, what happened was, so I was listening to MJ's podcast pretty much almost from I think he started a little bit before COVID, but you know, I'm a best guy. I love listening to podcasts anyways. And so I was just looking for podcasts. I found the Trap Talk, and one of his, it was one of the early ones, but he was talking with Levance from Straight Fire. And he said on there, he goes, hey, if someone was getting in, what would you tell them? He said, buy all the double recessive females that you can. And he said that, and I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And I couldn't buy visuals at the time. I mean, a lot of things worked out just financially during COVID. That's probably why there was such a big boom in the industry as well.
Right.
But everything from, you know, the extra money from the government to low refinances on house, like I leveraged all that, and plus all our savings. And I was just like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I was able to convince my wife, because by that time I mean, I could show her that I could produce them and that we could sell them, even low end stuff or medium end stuff. And so what I did was I immediately bought. Actually went on King Snake. I found a guy that was giving a good deal on a couple of DG het pied females. Bought those, and then clown pied female, I bought that, and then clown het DG female. So those were kind of like my base 4 base females that first time around. And then
sorry,
go ahead.
Your victories at home were way different than mine. Mine was that I got $500 to spend on a blue-eyed leucistic. Did you say you refinanced your house?
Well, it was because the interest rates were so low, and I wanted to cut the mortgage. I mean, the 30 years to 15 years or whatever, anyways. And then they're like, hey, right now you can pretty much put however much money you want into it. And we had quite a bit of equity, and so I just got a bunch of money out of that, and it didn't raise. I mean, it raised our mortgage like $100 a month or something. So
because the rate got lower.
Because the rate came down I was just able to get money to do that. So I was able. I mean, that really helped me get a leg up. And at the time, like I said, I'd seen some DG. I was finding DG females at that time for about $500 a pop. So I bought several of those. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna grow these up. And at the time I had some like larger, like candy het pied or het candy. So my very first year, like I spent like out of $4,000 spent, I made like 17 grand or something. And obviously all that went right back into it. So that's where like the main foundation came in. And then last year I was talking with my cousin actually, and he's a guy that he's in business and entrepreneurship and all that. And he was like, hey, I want to invest with you. And so he put in a good amount of money, and so I was able to get a whole bunch of other stuff as well to build up. But I also like there are times, especially that first year, when we could have gotten a better car. We could have done a lot, but we sacrificed a lot just to put it into snakes. And so I mean, and that because of that, my main I got a blackhead double het DG clown male. It had been sitting on market for a long time, and I just had this feeling. I was like, man, blackhead DG clown would be awesome. It would be really cool. And so I ended up getting it. It was the only one that I'd ever seen offered at that time. It already had like 500 grands on them. And I was like, okay, this is going to be my male for all these females that I just bought. And, so invested in that male and put them to a bunch of my females. And that's basically a lot of what built up my hatchling season this season, including some of the really nice stuff that I got to hit. And I got good odds on those clutches. I got really bad odds on some other clutches, but I got some good odds on this and in the DG Clown project. So
those are, I mean, if you're gonna get good odds, that's the one to hit on. That's cool. So that was the, what was that, fall and early winter of 2021? Our summer and fall when those were hatching.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Nice. That's a really fast. I mean, you had a lot. I mean, that time frame is not very long to go from buying a handful of snakes from Morph Market to, I mean, using savings, refinancing houses, getting your brother or your cousin became an investor.
My cousin, yeah.
Finding an investor. What was the aha certainty? I mean, because it sounds like you and I were actually in fairly similar situations. We were married, we had kids. I had reasonable income. I had reasonable, when you're talking about having home equity, you've reached a certain level of stability generally. So what was it? It was like, okay, I'm gonna put this on the line because I don't know what it would take for me to put that level of finance on the line.
Yeah, I think it's been like this latent passion within me for a long time, and so it just had a chance to finally come out. And then two, I was super focused on what genes that I wanted to have. And if you know me, Blackhead is kind of the codom that's the center of my projects. And then you have DG as the foundation, and then you have Clown and you have Pied. DG and Clown, DG and Pied. And hopefully I'm hoping to eventually bring all that stuff together. Yeah. And so with that kind of focus, I could actually see it going somewhere. And I do not have like this rack behind me. That's the only adult rack I have. So I have to be extremely focused, right? And what I buy and what I keep and hold back and all that. I mean, I'm going to have to expand, but right now that really keeps me focused. And so I think just the fact that I got tired of, it's going to sound funny, but I got tired of money just sitting in the bank and not doing anything. And then I found something that I could invest in that I could actually produce myself.
Right.
That's like, I can't do that. I don't have skills to, build houses or flip houses like myself. I can hire people to do that. I can do all that. But this is something that I could have a little bit more control, as much control as you can have over livestock, right? You can't control everything that a living animal is doing. But, it was something I could build. And so I just, and my wife, she's absolutely amazing, and she trusts me, and she knows I'm not going to run our family into the ground. Right. So she's like, take it and run for it, as long as, you're providing for us and everything's taken care of. So.
Were you doing, I know you said you've been working with the dogs and the training and security and whatnot. Did you have another career, or was there a day job through any of that, or has it always been entrepreneurial endeavors? And I guess what I'm asking is, did you walk away from anything to pursue this? And is there a day job now? What do you do now?
Yeah. So most people find this funny. So I'm actually a pastor of a Christian church. So that's what I've done that for a long time, in different areas. And so, that's my day job. I'm not walking around, walking off from that or anything. And actually, this is one of the things that I would love to try to get going, and, it can sustain my family, and, you don't have to take money from the church or whatnot. So, it's really, for me, I am more entrepreneurial. So I've started different churches and stuff like that. So
that's it's the one thing I love. Like, so how do I tie this all together? You're going to be like, what is that I'm talking about? So outside of being a professional restaurant consultant and running a ball python podcast, like, I love music. And in the time where we were just prior to where we were just discussing at a point in our lives, so like the mid 90s, I'm this awkward high school. We all were awkward in high school, but I didn't know we were all awkward. I just thought I was. And I went to a Vans Warped Tour. This is a punk rock show. This festival, like 30 bands. And I saw this band called Social Distortion. And to this day, outside of the Stones, probably, they're my favorite band. But the reason why is this punk rock scene, everybody was like welcome. There wasn't this judgment. And the only judgment was if you weren't cool to other people, as long as everybody could be there and have even playing field and even footing, everybody was welcome. And so to this day, like, I have this deep-seated appreciation for that mindset of that punk rock mindset that way. But the reptile community is almost the closest I've found to that. Kitchens are very similar. Kitchens are almost a meritocracy. The good ones, the bad ones can be a toxic locker room environment, but the good kitchens are a meritocracy where it doesn't matter your age, your gender, the dishwashers are respected the same way that a sous chef is, because we all have a job to do. And so I like that. And the point I'm coming to is, how cool is it that here I am sitting on a podcast about ball pythons with a guy that moved to Costa Rica that runs his own ministries now and church now. And we're all just talking about reptiles. And I know there's got to be people in the audience with, studs through their noses and tattoos on their foreheads. Like, we see all that too in the hobby, and it's great. Like, I love it all the
It's fine,
different
man.
walks of life, man. And I
Yeah.
really, I love it. And I love when I'm caught off guard that way, where I go, man, I knew there was a reason I was interested in meeting this person. And it's truly not religion based. It's that I just think you're a good person. And here we are all together, man. It's a cool thing. That's a cool moment.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed getting to know other people in the community. So I mean, it's there's something when things are going right. I think there's something just really special about the reptile community, and I think we can continue to push that forward as well. So
I think it's going to become a necessity, and I think it's a constant. I wouldn't say a constant battle, but there's got to be a constant effort, because it's too easy to find. And I'm not even just talking about, oh, don't be negative, only good vibes, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm saying that there are people legitimately making bad decisions that are broadcasting them, and people latch onto that. You alluded to it earlier, across cultures, and I would even go as far as to say across religions. There's stigmas around snakes that are deep seated in communities. So we already have this uphill battle. And then, we see the videos of like, the tragedy with FWC.
yeah.
So I think it's really important how we present ourselves and how we make an effort to regularly sustain ourselves. So yeah, like you say, there's good stuff happening, but I think we have to keep pushing it with quite a bit of effort, actually.
Yeah, for sure. I think even what we have going with social media, and like we get to connect with people all over the world that are doing this now, which right. I don't think that wasn't too much of a thing 20 years ago. I mean, I'm sure the big guys were shipping snakes all over the world at that time, but now like even me and you can follow a guy in South Africa and see what they're doing and projects they're doing, and we can even buy into that project if we want to,
Right.
So that's just amazing to me, getting to see all that.
And just being, I literally couldn't have done this podcast maybe 5 years ago, but not much more longer back. I mean, the technology just wasn't there. The speed of internet wasn't there. The quality, the connections. I mean, I have a digital USB mixer. Like in my day coming up, mixers, like I needed another dude to carry mixers in with me. Now I'm just, I can run it all right here. So, it's an incredible time and an incredible reach, man. The reach is what's amazing to me. I'm obviously I put a lot of work into this, and I'm proud of what I have, but I don't think it's anything like earth shattering. I know I'm still getting better at it. I don't think I've hit my peak yet, but the sheer number of people that even myself, having just said that I can reach is incredible. It's an amazing, it's an amazing time and opportunity for a lot of businesses, but particularly to be an entrepreneur and to chase things that we're chasing. So this question now, I was going to ask you about vending, but I would think most of your weekends, given the church related work that you do, is probably tied up. So do you vend at all? Do you do any shows, or what's the interaction with shows?
I've done one show.
Okay.
and I didn't sell anything, but I realized really quick that what I'm producing, they're not really for shows, at least in my area. So I enjoy going to shows. I've been to Arlington twice. Was it there this past February? Got to meet a lot of cool people. Right. And so I really enjoy shows for that reason. And even when I do shows, I'll just say I'll ask someone else to do the church for that weekend. But I've done it once and sold with my buddy, or we did with my buddy, and just learned a lot. It was just cool to be there all day, stand behind the table. So I enjoyed that. But every sale I've ever had has been over social media or Morph Market. So I'll always focus on that. The part I don't like is the shipping is not because it doesn't work, but just because the stress that comes with shipping.
There's a risk to it, yeah.
But other than that, I really enjoy going to shows, meeting people. So yeah.
Yeah, I've been shows have been on my mind. Jessica and Janet just did on the Holdback Rack podcast. They just did a kind of a deep dive on both the finances of shows, the logistics of shows, the politics of shows, the relationships of dealing with promoters of shows. and I hadn't experienced some of those things, so it was a little bit foreign to me because I've had really positive experiences. Although financially, one could argue I haven't made a whole lot, but I do start to see the snowball effect you hear people talking about, both at the shows, but also with follow up from the shows, and then like the pictures and the reels from the shows actually do really well, and then that leads to people following me that I can broadcast to. For future sales, or if I ask people how they met me. So I've found value in it. I mean, honestly, on the weekend, anything's better than running a restaurant that's getting overrun with frustrated people in COVID, So for me, like, I'm on this honeymoon period right now, and it's fantastic.
Well, I think I would definitely, like, if I could take 25 snakes that were, between $50 and $250, I'd probably do shows. I don't produce that many, and I don't produce that for the most part. Those snakes that I miss on what I'm trying to hit, I just wholesale out or something like that. Yeah. And so, but I can totally, like, I could totally see if I was doing this full time, if making shows a priority, going to big shows, like when you walk up to like Bob Boo's setup, like, that would be awesome to be able to get to do that. And that's, but that's just, not something that I'll be doing anytime soon. So.
Right. Well, and it takes, as you know, it takes time to get to that scale and that scope. Yeah. And really with anything, you don't, to use my old standby analogy, you don't become a chef overnight, or you don't, when you start performing, you're playing open mics, and then maybe you get to play a garage party, and then, somebody pays you in beer because they don't have the money, but hey, there's a party and there's kegs. So, you can have some beer if you come play. And then one day you get a gig, and then one day you get a good paying gig. And then one day you figure out how to really read a crowd and get them going. And then eventually you're making money and you're doing it. And that's kind of how I see shows right now. Now, I could be naive and I could be wrong. We'll see. But I got to say thanks to Phil real quick. That's a huge compliment. Phil says you give us a virtual tavern on Tuesday night, Adam. Phil, thank you so much. Phil's been a supporter for a really, really long time, and he's a really good breeder, and he's very I know electrical is background. I think electrical engineering, but Phil runs and installs systems that are fully solar powered, but also battery backup. So instead of, I think, as I understand it, instead of selling the extra back to the grid, he's able to collect the extra. So that also eliminates the need for generators, and his snake facility is completely self-sustained when it comes to energy and finances that way. So like, that's something, and I like my next home or my next place that I have. Like, I was only half joking, but I did my taxes earlier this year, and I was joking with Phil because he came up in the conversation with the tax guy. I said, "Could I fly this guy down and get him to install this equipment? Would that be an expense, a business expense?" And the guy was like, "Yeah, get him on a plane." I was like, "Phil, you want to come to Florida, man?"
There you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I recently I got a big battery backup. So I had the the normal generator, but like you have to be here if the power goes out or something like that to plug in your incubator and everything. So I got this. It's like EcoFlow. I think it's called EcoFlow battery. I'm looking down at it right now. But you can charge it, and then like this thing holds like, I think it'll run my incubator for like 78 hours with after it's storing the with the stored energy. And you can also buy multiple of them and then connect them, and then you have like you can power your whole house off of it. But the options that we have now are pretty amazing. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not a super handy guy, but I mean this was pretty easy to set up. So
yeah, I have a smaller grade one, and mine's more of like a office style backup.
Backup CPU or something like
that. But so mine's always on. So like I'm looking at mine too. All of my power flows through it to the incubator.
Yeah.
So it's constantly on. But I got about 7 hours with it, and then some people use sensor push. I use a brand called Govee. So I have the Govee, which has an app and an alarm on my phone. So if that incubator swings 2 degrees, this alarm's going off, and I'm running home to find out
what's going on. Yeah. Kind of deal. Okay. Yeah, that's cool.
So yeah, Phil, yeah, the uninterruptible power supply.
Yeah, UPS.
Yeah, Vision says if you live in Florida, you really need a generator. And I have one, but I'll tell you, with Phil's system, it being totally solar powered and then storing it, the sun's going to come up tomorrow, especially in Florida. You know, I'd be interested to know if Phil even has a generator now, but he doesn't live in Florida, and obviously we have different storms than Pennsylvania. But it's an incredible system, and I truly, because I did the math on what I'm spending on electrical versus what it would cost me to install one of the systems, and it's somewhere around 15 to 20 months it would pay for itself. That's less than one holdback female becoming mature, right? I mean, yeah. So in a scale of like snake time, that's next to nothing, you know?
Yeah, for sure. That's cool.
So what with your model that again I conveniently labeled boutique, you know, small and premium, but yeah. I use a SEO software, and I'll put in sort of a variety of synonyms for what I want to talk about, and be like, oh, this one rates really well. You were probably like, I'm not a, what are you calling me a boutique breeder for? You're probably like,
no, I was like, oh, you made me sound really good and look really good with that picture. A lot of editing going on, I think.
Well, I mean, I've had my own practice. I mean, you know, but yeah. So that was the SEO AI generator going, hey, this will get the clicks. You know, call them boutique. So, but what challenges have you faced with that model going down that road, or what do you feel like you miss out on? Anything?
Well, I guess there's the sometimes you don't get to buy snakes that you actually want. Like you see something that just looks cool, or you'd love to add to the collection, but or even moving outside species. So like I had a couple of T positive Costa Rican boas that I got from Warren Booth, and you know I had to move them because they did, you know, I need to focus on the ball python. So I mean that's me being a little bit more. I mean I have to be disciplined with the space and the money that I have. But when you're trying to focus that much on on certain projects, then you have to be that disciplined, I think. So that's kind of a downside. Another downside is, you know, not even other species, but other genes. You're having to look only at genes that work with the genes, or you think are going to work with the genes and genetics that you have in your collection. And so if it doesn't work, even though you like them, you're not going to pull the trigger on it, or you shouldn't pull the trigger on them because you don't really have anything to do with it. Unless you just want a, you know, cool looking pet for in your collection. So you know, like I actually jumped into the hypopuzzle project not too long ago, and I was actually going hypopuzzle DG. So I was planning, you know, I got 3 powerhouse females, and was going to wait a year to get the male, and then I was like, what am I doing? You know, you got to stick with what you have right now. So yeah. I was able to trade them and get some really nice stuff for the projects I have. But like, I think puzzle is probably going to be a massive project. And I mean, it's going to be I can't say this, but I think it's going to be one of the recessive projects in the next couple of years. And I'm going to miss out on that right now at this time. I know I'm going to be kicking myself, but it's just because I had to focus on so much on what I have right now and what I need to invest in right now. And the other point, I think that's been so you create very, very niche specific snakes with certain genetics, and so I think your customer base is a lot smaller. That's
it's always worried me about that model. Talk more about it. But I didn't mean to interrupt you. But
on the one hand, I don't mind because what you produce, and if it doesn't sell, it can be used as a backup. So like. Right. One of my favorite snakes that I produced this year, I actually have him for sale. He's a pastel blackhead DG het clown male. So I actually have the visual blackhead double het DG clown. I produced him this year, but and so I'm trying to sell everything else besides him. But at the same time, you know, it's always good to have a backup male if doesn't get. But one, if you think about it, I think there might be only one other pastel blackhead DG het clown on Morph Market, and 2, that's a very high dollar snake. Like that's something that people have to save up for. That's something that you've got to really think hard before you're going to spend that kind of money on a snake, because anything can happen to it. And so that the amount of customers that you have, that shrinks a lot.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, so how many, like I get this antsy feeling, and it's hard for me to get my head around, and even now, because I'm experiencing it. So I was fortunate enough, I say earlier this month, it's only the 9th of the month. It's still early in the month, but I sold a snake for, I think, $11.50. Nothing massive.
That's a good snake.
You know how hard I've worked in my life for $1,100 in my day, man. I'm walking on sunshine.
Yeah.
But I feel like, I was thinking earlier today, like emotionally, I was like, nothing's going on. I haven't done anything this month. I gotta do something. I gotta, stir the pot. I gotta activate the waters. And I just remember, like, data is so great. Like, facts are so helpful, and I look at my spreadsheets and I track everything, and I'm like, no, you're doing great, pal. You're averaging more than $100 a day right now, Adam, this month. You're doing just fine,
Yeah.
So, but that's got to be magnified for you if you're selling. I mean, or
I was telling my friend. So I got an inquiry and a sale on Sunday, and it was like the first inquiry I'd had in like 2 months.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So sometimes I'm like, okay, do I keep my morph market? Because I'm spending, I'm not at the top tier. I'm not at the bottom tier. I'm probably one above that. So it's a certain amount of money. But I mean, I want to have my store up all the time so people can look at it. I see that people are looking at it, but I either have something that's very, more on the higher end, or I have males that I'm just trying to move out, and so I'm dropping prices on those. And plus, I think the market is doing something it hasn't done in the last couple of years. It's adjusting, and so I'm trying to figure out, okay, am I overpricing this, and do I need to keep it like I set this male up $1,000 more than I have him up right now.
Yeah.
But I felt really good putting him at that price because I just like him a lot, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking, okay, do I need to drop him so I can sell him? There's another male, a similar project. He's a blackhead clown that 66% had DG. They don't have the DG shed test out yet, so I haven't done it. But I think they're getting close, so I went ahead and saved a shed. But he's like 400 grams, right?
Yeah.
So I had him down to a price of what everybody else had, like a normal blackhead clown at. But then I was looking at it, I was like, man, I can't sell him for that. I can't, And so I bumped it back up to a certain, a couple $100 more. But he's had like zero inquiries. And like I said, either one of those, they function in my collection as a backup male, especially if I have multiple females, which I will have by the time they're older. So it's not like a big loss for the collection. But I do think if you are going to go small, I do think you need to go high end, unless you're just having fun with it, or more of a hobby level. Or if you are going to produce, from what I understand, like $1,000 and down right now is selling really well. So you can make multiples of those, and they're going to sell well. So I have one clutch this year. It's the only clutch in the incubator right now. I have 2 more that are due like in 2 days, but it's going to be all codoms. And now it's a ton of different codoms, and they're going to look cool. But I'm hoping I'm going to be able to sell them between $250 to $800 or whatever it is. And I think they'll sell well, at least to keep keep expenses. You pay for expenses and all that.
Right. Yeah. And I would say my model is not what yours is right now, but it actually in the long term is what I would like to do. But my mindset is that I'm kind of, instead of leveraging a house or having a big investor, I'm building as I go, reinvesting that cash flow back into the business. And so each year will be a little bit better. But to your point, my $500 to $1,200 animals are moving. And if I'm going to have the capacity to sell 60, 70, 80 of those this year,
that's great money, man.
Yeah, that's great money, right? Like, okay, that model works pretty well for me.
It works, yeah. And I think if you have the if you have the space and you have the feeders, then I mean, there's nothing, and you have the time or the ability to take care of all of them well, then I don't see anything wrong with it at all. Like, that's great.
And I will say, I'm the first to say, whatever works for somebody, however they figured it out, because that's really the answer, and it maybe in life, but certainly in business, figure out what resource you can maximize, or what your secret weapon is, or what your, I think they call it an unfair advantage is.
Yeah.
And for me, it was, and I did this in restaurants a lot, but I mean, and I know it's cliche to say, but I really keep things simple. So I just looked at my two biggest expenses, and I went, okay, how am I going to fix these? Because these are what are breaking me right now. It was shipping and it was rats. Well, we're going to pay some bills in a minute, but you could see the logos above your head. There's okay. Yeah. So I started knocking on doors saying, here's what I think I could provide and what value I think I could provide. What value can you help with me, kind of thing. And I got a whole lot of no's, and then I got some really great yeses from some really great people. So that was like, and that's what I would encourage anybody to do, because I guess I could like buy a gas mask and a ventilator, but there's no way I can breed rats, man. My allergy is just ain't gonna cut it, man.
Yeah, I know a lot of people like them. I don't like the rats at all. And so, I mean, I got really lucky. I got two of probably the highest. I mean, I got two of the most, people that produce rats here in this upstate area. They live like 5 minutes from me.
Oh, cool.
It's not the same people who like Flawless Exotic Creations gets from. He's a little bit farther up in Spartanburg, but they live next to me. I mean, literally almost the same neighborhood. And that just helped me out a bit. But I also have a friend who's done rats before, and so we're starting our own operation now. So that's we'll see how that goes as well. So I like basically I'm trying to outsource my breeding my own rats. Yeah. So I invested in his business, and he's going to get to do whatever he wants with them. So
that was my other alternative. I was like, man, if I can't find a way to bring my costs down, then I'm going to go buy a rat business that I can invest in and stay away from it. Like I'll do the marketing, I'll do the figuring out how to sell here in town. But it all worked out. So I use Cold Blooded for frozen, of course. And then, local guy, Tito, he was in earlier, maybe still here, Tradesman Exotics. He's a great, ASF breeder actually. So for my hatchlings, I use his ASFs, and then I try and get everything transferred onto frozen thawed is what works best for me. But it's funny you said that about just starting, and I was like, man, if I can't get this cost down, then I'm going to dump a whole bunch of money into it. I'm going to go buy an operation that I can monetize and go into business that way on it. And to be honest, I still have a little bit of an itch for that, but I don't really have the time. I'm ratcheting down the restaurant consulting, but it's still such a major, major part of my income. I can't walk away completely, and I would be foolish to totally abandon that right now. So another 2-3 year scope, maybe I'll revisit the whole rat business thing. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, it's cool. The guy that I'm working with, he's a friend of mine, and he'd done it before, but he had to go back to work after COVID. So he sold everything off, but now we get to kind of start more professionally, and he's, in a good sense, he's a perfectionist. So he just keeps everything super, super clean. And so, I mean, we're hoping, as it grows, we're hoping that this actually becomes something big. And so, but I mean, he's the one putting all the time and energy into it. And I just get to tag along, and same thing, try to do sales, marketing, whatever is needed for the business, and we'll see where it goes.
Well, I had I've told this story before too, but had an experience where I was doing a winemaking internship in Napa Valley, and I finally got to spend some time with the winemaker, and I asked him, what would you do different, or you're at the peak. If you're making wine in Napa, you're the man. You're there, kind of thing. Even if you're at the bottom of that small fish in that pond, you're still at the top of the world. But he looked at me, and he was towards the end of his career, and he goes, Adam, I would just sell the stuff that the other winemakers need. He goes, I wouldn't worry about the wine. He goes, wouldn't have to worry about the weather. I wouldn't have to worry about good vintages and bad vintages. I wouldn't have to worry about kissing up to review writers or hosting people. He's like, I love it. I could still make wine. I could do a little garage operation and then sell barrels and sell the agricultural equipment. And that always stuck with me. I mean, that was in 2011. That was 12 years ago. That guy told me that. But I see rats in that category.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, for sure.
The market will fluctuate. There'll be popular genes. There'll be booms and busts. There'll be all of that. Everybody's going to need rats, man.
They still need, the snakes need to eat. Snakes need to eat. So I think it's a great business model. And yeah, there's. I mean, if I had more time and I had more space, there's probably several areas. Like my cousin who invested in this business, he actually owns a machine shop. So we've been looking at like, hey, could we make rats differently? You know, or trying to come up with different stuff. So
yeah, the little rat nozzles that they have to drink water from. I hear everybody complain about those things. Maybe those things need to be innovated. I don't know. I don't even fully know what the problem with them is. But yeah, that's when the like getting into the trades, you start going, wait a minute, that would have been really good to know how like machine work. I mean, that's incredible, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I think any good industry has a lot of industries that come out of that, and so I think this is definitely one of those. And so I mean, I'll never get away from the animals because that's what I like.
Well, exactly. That's kind of where I'm at. Like I think, I mean, I'm still again relatively new, but I mean, I'm still just in awe that I just get to walk into my snake room in the mornings, or I mean, these two racks here, I've already put them to sleep for the night, but they're it's just a really cool thing. Robby, give me let's take 2-minute break real quick. Help me pay some bills here. I got to say thanks to REDLINE Shipping for their support. Robin and the gang are fantastic. If you haven't tried them out, if you've been shipping and you haven't tried REDLINE, like it's a conscious decision not to, but I still think that you should. There's lots of great codes out there, but you'd be doing me a solid and you save yourself $5 if you use the promo code proper5. And I'm proud to say I was a customer of theirs before I ever signed on to business. Like I use their product. I'm proud to be associated with them. I feed my ball pythons frozen thawed rats. I just talked to Robby about that in pretty good detail, but I definitely only use Cold-Blooded Cafe on my frozen thawed rats. And likewise, I was a customer of theirs first. And I know this is like probably off-putting to some people. I could smell a difference when I opened their rat bags versus the competitors and the competition. And their production facilities are great, and their technology that they're using for freshness in their rats is actually something that's used in human food production as well. So anyhow, I'm a big fan of Cold-Blooded Cafe. Check them out. Look, they're going to give you 10% off, not $10, 10%. Use proper 10 on it's a one-time code, but you don't have to be a new customer. If you've ordered from them before, use proper 10 and you're going to get 10% off. And you guys know a full order of frozen rats can be pretty pricey. Also, I got to say a huge thanks to Chris at BNS Reptilia. That's Chris Shelley, BNS Reptilia up in Pennsylvania. One of the really, really good dudes in the industry. Like, you see his logo all over the place because he supports so many people like myself, and he really finds value in this community. Otherwise, he would just pay for, big spots or whatever. He's been a really great supporter of me. Many, many different species, not just ball pythons, colubrids, boas. I know, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, I was right on it. What are the carpet python? Morelia. There we go. So he's a great guy. He's a great resource. Great animals. Go check out Chris at BNS Reptilia. He's also the distributor in Pennsylvania for the Chipper Cocoa. I do not care to wade into the cocoa wars, but I can tell you I'm very happy using the Chipper Cocoa, and Chris is where I get mine from. So there we go. Guys, thank you all so much for your support. I truly couldn't do it without you all. And I got to look a little bit closer today because I was approached with another sponsorship opportunity today, which I'm thankful for. But I told the people, and I was proud to be able to tell the people, I cannot entertain your offer out of respect for my existing sponsors. This wouldn't be fair to them, what you're asking me to commit to. So I truly am thankful. You guys do truly make a difference. This isn't just like, oh, run a commercial and be cool. I really, really appreciate it. So go check out those companies. Thanks, guys. Robby, thanks for bearing with me there, because they do make a difference, and I do have to give thanks. You mentioned earlier something that hit with me. I think you said you were going to kick yourself because you feel like you would miss out on the puzzle. And I think that's something that we all feel, because like we all sort of want, and not in a religious way, because I think that this is even referred to in the Bible, but we covet what we don't have, right? We want, we don't take the time to look at what's right in front of us. You don't say, how amazing are these DG clowns that I'm working and pieds? You go, I want that over there, right? And so I don't think that you're alone in it, but that people have always told me I'm really good at compartmentalizing things. They're like, you don't get mad at them. I'm like, oh, I get pretty mad. I shove it away. I was never big enough to get in fights, you know? So like, okay, you just got to shove it away. So, but yeah, I think that's something everybody experiences. Is there anything like right now that you're seeing that you're like, I mean, it's a short time you've been relatively short time you've been actively breeding, but anything that you're just like, oh man, I missed out on that, or how did that happen, or anything like that?
No, I think puzzle's probably the main one. I'm in RCR's Royal Canadian Reptiles Patreon, and so I mean he's got some amazing stuff. So but it actually, I mean, a lot of it's more of the double recessive stuff, because that just takes so long. Right. Triple recessive, I mean, it just takes so much time and so much space, and so you see what it can become. And you also see these guys who actually have the space and the animals to make that happen and make that reality. And so you see that, you're like, oh man, there's so much more investment there. But what you said also, like, the amazing thing about ball pythons in general is that you can still work a project it seems like forever, whether even if it's just one recessive. I mean, look at clown, they've been doing it forever, and you're still seeing crazy stuff come out. And so then you add another recessive in there, and then it starts all over again. So I mean, I think it's to your point, it's more of us just wanting what we don't have, you know. But yeah, I mean, I think for me it's probably puzzle. I mean, there's some even basic genes that I would like to get in the collection that I don't have. I really like to try to combine dark and light into the different genes. So like I'm not a big fan of, let's say, like a normal pastel blackhead. But when you put pastel blackhead into DG, it's just like, oh man, the contrast is crazy. Yeah, it's for me. It's just something that you're like, wow. And so like I don't like pastel. But I was just thinking today, I was looking at someone that had pastel. I was like, no, I'm starting to like pastel again. And I don't even know why. I mean, just because it doesn't do great in clown doesn't mean it's not doing great with other genes, that kind of thing. So, but I have literally sold off almost all anything with pastel. I kind of look over. I mean, I don't include it a lot in my collection because I want to avoid having too much of it. But at the same time, you know, I'm starting to like it. So, you know, it's just, I think there's personal preferences involved with those kind of decisions. And then I think there's obviously our own limits, which are space, time, energy, resources. But, you know, with everything in life, your limits can become your opportunities. And so that's basically what I've really tried to capitalize on. Yeah.
And there was a lot bundled up in there. First, I want to say hey to Mark at 403 Fauna. He's a good friend, and he's a long time supporter for like really early on. But he's kind of a pastel nut, man. Like Mark loves pastel. And it was really encouraging when he started his YouTube channel. That was one of the things that he talked about, was the right things in the right places. And so like I was just talking with somebody today because they wanted, out of the blue, they asked, hey, Adam, do you have this set of genes in a pied? And I was like, well, he was going to be my backup breeder. I don't know if I'm going to sell him or not. And then I got looking and I was like, I got everything that I need in other combinations. So I'm going to make this sale. But also one of the things I realized was that like, I want pastel, like in all my pieds. I think in pied, it's fantastic. Whereas in clown, like you say, there's a right place for it. But in general, I'm actually going to sell my pastel clown breeder this year. He's going to go. But finding that, and then something like hypo on top of it, suddenly it's cool again. You know, is that fine in clown? Maybe that's what because I've got a lot of hypo clown stuff coming up too. So that's a really neat part of the you know, it's so everybody uses the word the journey, but sort of the learning, the experience, the experiment that we're going through, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. As far as other genes that I'm like would like to get into, I mean, it's going to be a long time, but like, I do like the zebra. I saw some of those in Arlington, and those, I think there's a lot of potential there. I do like, I guess it's hard. I think we have so much of the color palette, but anything that disrupts the pattern I think is worth trying to get into. So that's the thing. Yeah.
The last, well, I've gotten pretty hot on mahogany lately. I like mahogany as well, just from a color changing. Yeah. But the last like one that I was just like super excited to get into, and I spent, to me, what at the time was quite a lot of money for me, was an acid het clown. Oh, and I got it from Dale. He's in the audience tonight, and Dale's been great to me. You talk about pattern disruption, contrast. The dark colors are amazing, but even the yellows have this almost greenish tint to them that it's just like this like glowing olive color with acid as well. So I can't wait. I got this male, and I was like, all right, I'm going to have him ready. He's going to hit 600 for breeding season. It's going to be no problem. That snake is almost 1,000 grams, and he will not lock, hasn't touched a female, nothing. He's the most voracious eater that I have. And I mean, like, to the point where I've been like, that's a female. Dale sold me a female, which fine in the long run. I won't care. And I'm like, no way. The guy popped him right in front of me. He was like, I remember it was like the last thing he did before he handed him off, because it was like a hideout. Like, it was like he knew he couldn't mess up on that snake, you know? And I'm like, so I gotta wait another year, but
yeah, it'll happen. It was funny. My first season, the first pairings, like the first 4 pairings up, the male wouldn't lock, and I thought I was doing something wrong. And then he didn't want to lock. It was what it was. But acid is a great project. I don't have any, and I would like to. There's been several times I've looked into getting. I just haven't seen either I haven't seen the exact animal that I want, or I didn't have the funds at the time to get what I wanted to. And I'm kind of strict with snake monies for snake money, and so
you gotta be disciplined, man. It can, well, I mean, you don't have to be, but if you're not, you gotta have a lot of money. So you gotta have one of them. Anyway, no, but I'm not. I agree with you that way. I have certain lanes for certain things. And it's funny because people will go like, well, Adam, you say you don't have money to buy this stuff, but now you're chasing a real estate investment. I'm like, yeah, we sold our house, not for snake money, to buy other investments. Like that, you can't mess with that, man. Like, that's not to be. Same with guitars. I actually, speaking of my tax guy, he gave me a hard time. He's like, you didn't buy any guitars this year? I was like, no. He's like, you never told me that. I've done my taxes for like 17 years. It's like, you never told me that before. I was like, I know, man, it's crazy. But yeah, guitar money for guitars, snake money, you know, music, snakes, life investments, and then career investment, man. You got to have those boundaries.
You got to have the buckets, man. If you don't have the buckets, it's too risky.
It is, or you got to like I'll trade from one into I'll rank what I feel like I'm best at. So I'm best at restaurants. I've done that for 27 years. I'm pretty good at property because I've had an investment property since 2008. What's that? 15 years. Yeah. Music. I've been doing that for 3 decades. Well, where's that leave snakes? Right at the bottom of the pile. Like, I'm not like I could take snake money and put it into that stuff, but it can't go down the ladder. Like it could go up the ladder, but it can't go down.
Can't go down,
yeah. Tell us about your I guess you alluded that maybe it was an endeavor or you felt like you weren't as successful at it, but tell us about the bilingual efforts on your YouTube channel. I thought that was real intriguing.
Yeah. So let's see. I guess last season, a guy from Mexico reached out to buy a snake from me, and it was not a cheap snake. It was probably well over $1,000. It was a female. I think it was a pastel inchy double head DG clown. At that time, it was you know, a pretty high dollar snake. But then he would ask me very basic keeper questions. And so I was thinking it through, and I realized, oh, these guys, they're ready to spin, they're ready to get in the hobby, but they don't have, like, we have a million YouTube channels that explain everything. They have, like, Miguel, I think they have BBM from Puerto Rico. That's Ron Heisenberg. He's got a Spanish channel. And there's a couple other guys in Mexico that do it, but a lot of them, like Miguel's Spanish channel, for the most part, he's just showing off his stuff. He's not teaching things and doing all that stuff.
Did I see? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Did I see at one point, like, Justin had spent some time with Miguel, and Justin was like subtitling his in Spanish? Does he still do that? Is that or is that just a setting on YouTube? Or
I've not seen it happen. I remember when he was asking, because I had a friend of mine. I told him, hey, put in a bid. You might get it. But I don't think I've seen it very often, and that's the difficult. I think the actual challenge of getting into the Mexican market is the actual getting the snakes there. Right. I think the people have the money, they have the desire. It's a growing hobby, but there is a ton of work to just get it over. It's not like a normal CITES paperwork. I think there's certain rules from the investigation I did. And so I wanted to get into it, but basically what I came up against was, one, the videos weren't being watched too much. Like, I have a couple in the couple hundred views range or something like that, but you know, for YouTube, that's very, very small. And I was basically, the return on investment of time and energy of doing a video, which my videos are very, very low. Like, they're about as low quality as you can get. But just taking the time to think through things and doing it, they just weren't getting. I mean, I get some interaction, but I couldn't sell them a snake anyways. So I mean, I couldn't get it to them. So basically, I've stopped doing that and just switched my actually from my podcast with Keys. He was like, "Hey, just do it in English." I was like, "Yeah, I probably should." And so I just started doing it in English from there. And I've seen views go quite a bit up, and I'm not as consistent as I should be. I'd like to eventually get there. I just had to do a lot of traveling this semester. But I do think if the shipping, if getting them over was figured out, I think it's a huge, awesome market to be a part of. Panama, I think, is there as well. And I'm not sure about South America. I've heard, you know, some keepers in Argentina, but, you know, a lot of those, besides Mexico, I mean, Mexico is obviously very, very volatile, but it's probably a bit more stable as far as an economy goes. I mean, you're talking about, you know, one city has 30 million people or 25 million people or whatever. Yeah. So it's huge. We don't think about how big these places are, right? And there's so much more. So even last month I was actually in Asia, and I got to visit some Filipinos, a Filipino breeder, and you know, I'm in Manila, and I don't know what I was thinking, but I wasn't thinking Manila would be like that. I mean, you just have towers.
It's massive.
It's like 17 million people in one place, and you've got like 3 breeders. No, it's not just 3 breeders. I'm exaggerating, but like it's a handful of breeders for people. And the interesting thing was, when I would tell people about the snakes, they weren't scared. They were intrigued about it. Like, they weren't some of the phobias that you might experience in other cultures. They were just like, oh, that's interesting. And they would, you know, I even took some friends that had never seen anything like it to one of the breeders that I visited, and they were interested in all of it. And so, like, I think Asian market is I mean, it's just about figuring out how to get it over there. And I think I'm sure Justin and Bob and Will and all these guys already have it all figured out. I'm so far low on getting snakes out there and stuff. You see these huge purchases from Thailand and Korea and the Philippines, and so, you know, there's out there. But I think South America, Central America at least, is an option. You know, you have other places, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador. You know, those are countries that are just trying to. I mean, it's very difficult to have extra cash for anything there, and if you do, you know, you got to protect it quite. I mean, it's just volatile as an economy and government. So, but I mean, it doesn't mean that that there's not other places that we can be looking into investing in and helping other breeders from those areas. So that's what was behind what I wanted to do, was just, and literally from my first video, I talked about air temperatures. I talked about my setup. Like, it was very, very basic. I did one where I walked through how I pull eggs, just as basic as you get, because they don't have anything in their language to do that. They're watching videos with subtitles, or, with YouTube generated Spanish subtitles. And Spanish, like, it's spoken by like 500 million people in the world or something like that. There's a bunch of people that speak Spanish. So
you, in a roundabout way, you hit on it a couple times. The scope, I don't think I won't speak for anybody else. I don't think I have the physical or mental capacity to actually understand what the number 9 billion, which is the number of people in this earth, means. Well, I can't comprehend what 9 billion of anything is. I was trying to explain to somebody today that, 40,000, a lot of us can understand what 40,000 and in dollars, that's a lot of money. And I was trying to explain to somebody today that 40,000 of 1 million is the same as $4 of $100. Because we were talking about a scope of a renovation, and we're getting hung up on a $40,000 question. And I'm like, if you're spending $100 and $4 is going to make a difference in something, do you think twice about it? He's like, no, but this is 40 grand. And I'm like, of 1 million? And it's that same kind of thing. You're talking about. So even if Justin and Bob and Miguel and whoever else are there first, they can't possibly produce enough snakes to saturate a market like that, or a market like Manila. And actually, I had a similar conversation with myself tonight. There's other podcasts, and I think I purposely don't find out now because it irrationally annoys me. Because I was here first, so it should be mine, right? I own 8 o'clock. That everybody else out. No, but I was like, Adam, you're. This is a stupid thing that you're mad about. You have 2,500 subscribers on YouTube. The other show isn't getting 2,470 viewers, and 30 of them are here. You're not activating your own subscribers, your own base, So it's kind of like that, where like I don't get caught up in. Is the market too saturated? Are there too many people getting in? If somebody else tries to sell snakes, is that going to be one less that I sell? No, I think I can do it better, and I can reach more people. There are people that do it better and reach more people than I do, but I think I can figure it out along the way, kind of thing. And I think that's going to be the answer too, as well, of when, because you're right. And I know I keep rambling. I think in Mexico, you're right. The politics, the economy, and the challenge of the border, production is going to have to primarily happen in Mexico. I don't think we're going to be exporting. So production's got to move there, which is it takes a lot of money, but that's a relatively simple concept, other than where do you get a killer collection into Mexico to start producing? Yeah. Like, how do you get that initial seed in there?
And I think, I don't, all I know about Miguel is what I see online, right? So, but I think he's actually, he's doing it from what I can understand. That's basically
what I've heard,
he's doing. So it's but even when everybody gets scared and there's 46,000 ball pythons in the market, morph market, and all that, and obviously I don't know what the true number is. But if you look at even a country like ours, what is there, like 325 million, 350 million here in the States?
Right.
1% of that is 3.25 million people, and so 40,000 to 3-point-something million. Even if 1% has an interest in reptiles, I think it'll be difficult to produce that many. So that's my take on it. I understand the fear. It just means we gotta work hard. We gotta market. But I think that's any business that we're competing with others as far as the product we're selling. So
we'd all be billionaires if it wasn't hard. Of course it's hard. It's hard to run a restaurant. It's hard to make it as a musician. Yeah, I've gotten lucky that I kind of make it in all of them, but I'm not. It's not like I'm just cruising by and driving Maseratis either, So I think you're exactly right. Is figuring.
Well, that point also I think is important. Is some people, how you define success? They're thinking in terms of my success is this other person's success instead of what is a full successful life in the whole sense of the thing. Yeah. Not just I'm able to have everything that I want or whatever that is. And so when you look at some of these guys, you're like, oh yeah, man, that'd be great to have all that. But is that realistic? Is that something you should shoot for? Maybe. I don't know. It could be. And maybe you'll be able to do it. But at the same time, maybe, you don't really know what it costs them to get there. You don't know the sacrifices that they made. You don't know what they've lost. You don't know how much time they put into it. And when you're expecting to be at that level and within 3 or 4 years, I mean, it's for most people, it's unrealistic. And then you get discouraged, and then you get out, and then, whatever progress you made lose. So
I agree. And I also agree, or I would say, because you didn't say it, so I can't agree with it, but I would say, I worked at for 6 years of my life. I worked at a country club owned by one person, a billionaire. Without getting into politics and society and all that, most of us would agree more money than one person should have if he earned it ethically and morally fine. But my point being, at that club, there were people that and you had to have financial resources beyond what most of us or most of my generations in the future will ever have. And there were people at that club that were so terrified of the debt that they had, I heard deals at dinner where another neighbor in the club would buy their house and basically give them the equity in their house just so they could keep up that lifestyle, and basically let them rent there so that they could feel rich. And I'm like, that's not happiness. That's and Shannon knows me. He's making a joke about me saying I don't drive a Maserati. Yeah, I drive a Tacoma, and that Tacoma's paid for, and I don't pay a penny for it every month, and I hope I get another 10 years out of it. And when my son learns to drive, he could drive that Tacoma if all things go right. And to me, that's not cheap. That's just being happy that it's one thing I don't have to worry about. I could go chase snakes or guitars or whatever, and I have that time with my family. So yeah, you're exactly right. Like us following others' definitions of happiness rather than our own is it's a lifelong journey though, right? It's easy for us to sit here on a podcast. I still struggle with it. Yeah. I mean, that's a lifelong, I can't say I've mastered that by any stretch. Hey, we alluded to it earlier a little bit. You're selling some expensive snakes. What platforms are you moving? I mean, do you primarily, do you primarily rely on Morph Market, or do you find results from pushing Instagram, or do you do YouTube features of your high-end animals? Talk a little bit about how that machine works for you.
Yeah, so I have mainly relied on Morph Market for the higher end stuff, but when I think about this year, a lot of it has moved on Instagram. The story, or even someone saw something on Morph Market and then they reach out through Instagram. Yeah. So ideally, I would keep a store on Morph Market as like a centralized place, but I'm open to selling whatever platform works. So
a pigeon if you want with the money. I don't care, man. I'll just get it here. Yeah,
exactly. So sometimes I feel like I don't want to spam on Instagram, but at the same time, so few of my followers actually see what I post a lot of times, so I'll repost and do that. Recently, since I've started doing the English YouTube videos, I have highlighted some of the snakes that I have for sale, or I'll just mention. But I haven't gotten any sales off that. I have had people comment and say, hey, I've been looking at it on Morph Market, haven't bought it yet, but I've been looking at it, that kind of thing, and that's movement, and so I'm good with that. But I know, for example, I know that I probably should do better at an email list for my past customers. I know that I should probably make it known that I'm, I'm flexible with payment plans. I'm flexible. To get a sale done, I try to work as much as I can with the customer.
Right.
And I don't think that really comes through a lot of my posts and what I have on Morph Market. And so I would like to do better at that. I'm learning the whole marketing thing as I go as well. So one of my goals this year is probably get up an email list and send whatever bi-monthly emails with some kind of nugget of information, and also, hey, if you get my emails, you get some kind of discount on my snakes and that kind of stuff. But that's, those are just ideas that I need to implement that I haven't done.
There's two thoughts. One, if it makes you feel any better, I've sent an email list now for about, I think, 7 months. I've sold 0 from those emails.
Okay.
I've gotten 2 inquiries though, man. It's picking up. It's getting hot.
There you go.
But it's one of those things. Once you figure out the process, it really is 20 minutes of work once a month. So it's also what can it hurt, and how do I know they're not going some Morph Market and buying, or forwarding it to who knows, maybe they'll forward it to maybe I'll do that. Hey, forward it to a friend, and if they purchase, give them this code, or who knows what. But I'm like a big believer in, the odds might be slim, but they're better than 0. And if we sit on the couch, and I mean, what was I going to do for that 20 minutes anyway? So I may as well go do some business. And then the other thought, I said I had 2 thoughts, but maybe that one's escaped me now. I see a lot of, I guess, what's the business word? Synergy. Like you say, maybe somebody sees something on Instagram and they click through to Morph Market, or vice versa. I see that a lot, and I'm a pretty big believer in that. So even shows, I can't quite quantify the value of a show, because the reels that I get from that I do from the shows of my setup, they generate, I mean, I've had some of those hit 15, 20,000 views. Yeah. That's going to translate to something somewhere. I might not be able to quantify it, but it's going to happen out there somewhere. Right. So I guess what I'm saying is, I still love the idea of just show up and do the work, man. If we're doing the right work and doing it in the right mindset, eventually something good's going to come from it.
Yeah. And then the other part is, well, there's actually 2 parts. I think, the other part is repeat customers. Like, I love having someone come back and get something again from me. That for me, that is maybe one of the most exciting things about, because you develop a friendship, you develop a relationship, maybe not a friendship, but a relationship. And then you get to see their collections built around stuff that you've produced. And I mean, with repeat customers, I help them out all the time with that kind of stuff.
Of course. Yeah.
And then,
I'm sorry. I stand corrected. Shannon says he bought 3 of the snakes from the lists. Oh,
nice.
but Shannon's a perfect example of kind of the synergy. I think, Shannon, correct me, I think we first met from you watching the show, and then he watches Instagram, he looks at Morph Market. We see each other at shows often, and I don't. God bless him, man. I think he's bought 5 or 6 snakes from me now, and he's paid some bills for me, and I'm extremely thankful for that. But that's good to know. And actually, Matt, thanks for saying that, Matt. He says keep sending the emails, so people are seeing them. Okay, so they are reaching, they're getting out there. That's cool to see. I've never done any research on like the click through or the open rate, or hey, have you gone somewhere else? So just those 2 like bits of details are really really interesting for me. So Shannon, thank you. I hope I didn't sound unappreciative there. I didn't realize that those were that was the catalyst back there on some of those. So okay. All right. Well, hey, email lists are still coming. If you want to be on the email list, just email me. It doesn't cost you anything, and I send 1 email a month, and I do not sell your information. Robby, I'll get you out of here on this topic, and we can talk for as long or as little as you want about it. What are the future plans for you, and how does that relate to where you see the industry going?
So I think my ultimate goal is some kind of multi-gene DG clown pied. So DG clown pied plus whatever. Like I said, I think Blackhead's going to be in it. But plans with what I have growing up, we'll have OD, fire, inchy, all mixed in, stranger, that kind of thing. So, you know, just seeing what, if I can hit the triple eventually, and probably hopefully within the next 2 years, and then adding codoms into that. And that's, I mean, if you think about it, a project like that is probably the next 20 years if I wanted to. You know,
that's true. Yeah, you made your point earlier that even once you hit it, okay, you hit the triple, now you can go codoms or rebuilding that along the way. Go ahead, I cut you off there, but yeah.
That's and so I think that's there. I think so. I like to. I can be contrarian in my thinking sometimes. I love the fact that we're going recessive, triple recessive, all that. Sometimes I think we might go back to just codoms when we start, because I think some of the coolest looking snakes are just codom snakes. I mean, they're awesome to look at. And I mean, I've seen some recently, and maybe throw a het in there, and then you can put it into a recessive project. But I'm wondering sometimes I wonder if, you know, in the next, 5 years, the pendulum swings back to, you know, a time where you're thinking, you're not just trying to get as many codoms into a snake, you're actually thinking intentionally about, hey, you know, this Inchy Mojave OD, that looks nuts. What happens when you add something into that? So I wonder sometimes if the pendulum's going to swing a little bit more to the center or farther that way, whereas we're no longer just creating white snakes or gray snakes or black snakes because we're putting so much in, but we're being much more intentional about what combos we're making. And then obviously you can always put that back into the recessives. But that's basically, I mean, I think I'm always going to try to do some cool looking, you know, combos, whether they're not high dollar or not. But
right.
I'd like to see that.
I think, well, to your point, I've become nearly obsessed, like impatiently obsessed, because I've got to wait like 2 years to do anything with them, with super gravels. Man, that's so cool. It's crazy, man. I just dumped a bunch of money into super gravels. I've been trying to recoup a little bit of it, but like I'm keeping 5. I got 5 of them, man. I'm going to do.
You got five super gravels?
Yeah, I got.
That's awesome.
I got super gravel Enchies, super gravel pinstripes, super gravels. I just sold Shannon a pastel super gravel. Man, okay. I'm like I say, I'm impatiently excited about the project right now, but they're all hatchlings. So at any rate, yeah. So I think that from a creativity and I guess I'll call it emotional standpoint versus rational, but from the rational side too, I know it's easy and cliche to say, but the market's still going to speak. There's still going to be surpluses, and there's going to be deficits, so to speak, and that's going to drive decision making. And all of this abandoning codoms right now, which I'm guilty of as well, or not abandoning, the lack of focus on it, it will drive that. Now, the difference between codoms is how much more quickly it can rebound. I mean, if everything gets hot, well, okay, everybody breeds codoms for a year, poof, the market's right back where it is. But it'll cause a blip on the radar at some point, I believe.
And I think the other side of that also is if ball python breeders get into like line breeding, like what we're seeing, like what Chris Hernan is doing with his OD lines, the different, he's got high intensity and then he's got deep orange, he's got different lines. Like
I think
if we see more of that, if we see more of that, then I think there'll be a bit of a comeback. Because line breeding, I mean, that's used in all kinds of, basically all animals that I ever know except for ball pythons. Because you bring the best out of, the best genetics or what is that called? Polymorphism traits, polymorphic traits out of a certain line. And so like for when we bred dogs, you breed the extremes, especially for security. You breed the extremes. These are not dogs you want as pets. They're not going to work as pets. They work as working dogs. But you breed them so that you can hope that you can even reproduce something like that. And so when you line breed on certain traits, and I think they do that with other reptiles, we just don't do it yet. And you see the difference between an awesome hurricane and a not great example of a hurricane, or OD that doesn't really look like OD. It looks like a banded snake, and then you see what Ozzy's producing, what Chris Herring's producing. Then there's obviously different. We've got to, maybe in the market, we've got to convince people that it's worth paying a little bit more to get the better example, and not just chasing the gene or the genetic trait, but chasing what's going to bring more to the combo or whatever it is. But I think there's plenty to do in that sense as well.
I think you're exactly right, and I should have highlighted as well, or agreed with you a little more emphatically. That what you talked about with intentionality, that might be in a nutshell what gets me going so much with ball pythons, because from 2008-ish until today, I have studied wine. Like, I'm a level 2 certified sommelier from the Court of Master Somms. But that's winemaking. That's the idea. What are we going to grow? When are we going to pick it at harvest? What sugar levels are we going to accentuate? What angle of the sun do we want? What influences in the soil do we want? And that's the same mindset of, okay, and she's going to reduce this. Maybe there'll be a striping pattern. All right, if we put pastel in there as well, is it going to bust it up too much, or what happened? Thinking that way is that's really what gets me going. Plus, they're just cool animals. They're amazing animals and amazing something to be a part of. But I think you hit the nail on the head. And that intentionality goes with the selective line breeding that you're talking about as well.
Yeah. So,
tell everybody where they can find you.
Well, I mean, Instagram is probably the main social media for me. So at RJEN_Reptiles. And then I do have a YouTube channel, just trying to do that. My 10-year-old daughter, she's the one who's helping me. She's doing much better than I ever did. So she's doing a good job with that. And so those are the main places. I do have a Facebook page, but I just basically linked it to my Instagram, so it's nothing new on there. And then obviously my Morph Market store. I don't have a whole lot coming. I mean, right now, but I do have a bunch. If you're into DG Pied, which I think for me, if you've got Pied, you got to put DG into it. If you're into DG Pied, this is the season for DG Pied, and then I do have some DG Clown stuff that'll be coming. I do have some DG Clown stuff up right now as well, but yeah. This is all DG stuff. And so if you're interested in that, you go check out my Morph Market, or just hit me up. Never know what I'll be willing to sell.
Smartly, in my opinion, but certainly conveniently, Robby has a LinkTree link, and that link is down below in the description. You can just click on his LinkTree, and it'll take you to all the places that you can find him as well on there. Robby, thanks so much, man. We got to do this again sometime. It's a really great show. There's nights where it feels like work and it's a good show, and then there's nights where it feels fun and it's a good show. And tonight was one of those fun nights, man. I really appreciate it.
Well, man, thanks so much for having me on. It's really great to. I think this is like the first time we've actually talked.
It is. Yeah. We
besides texting, and so and really appreciate you having me on. And I was telling someone recently, I forget who it was. It might have been Herbert from HB Reptiles. But you probably need to have him on sometime. He's got some pretty cool stuff. But I was telling him this is one of the top shows that I've really enjoyed. I mean, I hardly ever get to come on the live, but I always listen every week and really enjoy the content that's being provided here. So thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. And I wish I'd alluded to this earlier, but everybody that joined the show tonight from, sort of Robby's platforms or seeing the show through his communication out. Thanks so much. I hope you stick around. I hope you subscribe. If you're still watching and you haven't hit the like button, and if you liked it, if you didn't like it, don't hit the like button. But if you do, it helps. It helps me. So Robby, thanks so much, man. Stick around backstage for just a second. Don't run off. I want to tell everybody thanks so much. HB, I'll hit you up. I know you're here for the whole evening. If nothing else, just to say hello outside of here. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Guys, next week I got Kai Lee from Lucas Landon Royals. I will see you all next time, and we're going to hit the music. Cheers, everybody. Thank you very much.